Hello, my name is Dick McCord. I'm Vice President of Engineering for Silver Sport Transmission. Today we're going to show you how to install our TKO Perfect Fit transmission into a Tri-5 Chevy. This particular one is a 57 Chevy Belair. Once you have removed the TKO from the box and checked out to make sure it shifts, we're ready to do the pre-install for the hydraulic bearing. So this is done on a bench. I've already inserted the rubber boot. The hydraulic line is placed within the boot. We install the bell housing onto the front retainer. Next, I'm going to install one bolt to make sure the bell housing is oriented properly to the transmission. Slip the hydraulic bearing over the stud on the retainer. Then position the hydraulic line and install that loosely fingered tight. At this point, you want to rotate the hydraulic line so that it exits through the grommet in the boot without any strain. Holding that in position, you can then go ahead and tighten the fitting. So now the hydraulic system is ready to install. Remove the bell housing, slip the bearing off the shaft, and now this is ready to install into the car. Okay, I've installed a new 26 tooth clutch disc and pressure plate. Torqued all the fasteners properly. The fasteners on the pressure plate are torqued to 35 pound-foot torque, and the flywheel was installed with 60 pound-foot torque. Now we're ready to install the bell housing with the hydraulic bearing pre-installed. The bell housing is in position, and I've hooked the ear of the bearing at the 4 o'clock position behind the register hole in the bell housing. That holds the bearing in place for the time when we install the TKO transmission. So I'll go ahead and get a couple of fasteners on the bell housing. Now, prior to this step, I've already installed the bell housing and done all the bell housing face run out checks. It has to be within 5 thousandths total indicator reading to operate properly with the transmission, and if you don't dial it in properly, you can void the warranty if there's any issues down the road. Okay, now we're ready to install the TKO into the clutch and on the bell housing. I've got a spare slip yoke that'll let me have the ability to rotate the shaft to help line up the input shaft splines into the clutch. So I want to make sure I shift it into third gear. That will make sure that the input turns with the output. Alright, now I'm just adjusting the transmission jack. Make sure everything lines up. The input shaft will fit into the hydraulic bearing. We want to make sure that the stud from the transmission is going into the top hole of the hydraulic bearing. transmission is seated against the bell housing. With the transmission in place, now we insert the 4 bolts. Okay, now that we've got the TKO mounted and lifted into place, we're ready to install the crossmember system and complete the entire installation. So the next thing will be the isolator. Using hardware pack H bolts. Next we install the SST crossmember. Attach the crossmember to the isolator using hardware pack B. Now we mount the special mounting brackets to the frame using hardware pack C. The first step is to mount the bracket to the crossmember. For the time being, I'm going to tighten the bolts finger tight. Push the frame mounting brackets out against the frames. For this installation, I'm going to assume that we're going to weld these in place. So I'll install a clamp. You want to make sure that the crossmember is level to horizontal. So before you secure the clamp for welding, or you do have the option, if you don't have the welding ability, you can drill holes in the mounting brackets through the frame and mount it in that way also. So I'm going to check for level and adjust slightly to get that horizontal. Okay, that's still level. So now that would be ready for welding in place. Now we're ready to install the speedo cable, and before we do that, we want to make sure we get the cable nice and greased up for smooth operation. Pull the cable out, apply a little bit of the grease from the supplied tube. Spread that over the cable between your fingers and reinsert the cable. Okay, now that we have the cable lubed and installed back in the sheath, we're ready to install the speedo gear from hardware pack S. Install the small O-ring over the end of the cable. Install the speedo gear and the retaining clip. Push that in place. So now it's ready to go. And we can now insert this into the TKO. Alright, now that the cable is bolted into place, for the Drive 5, we've got a screw-on connector that goes into the speedo head. Before we install that through the body, it's a good idea to tape the end of that. That keeps dirt from getting in the cable. So now you would route the cable up into the opening in the floorboard up into the car. Alright, now that we have the DKO installed, the last step in the process is to measure for your drive shaft so you can send that into SST and have your custom drive shaft made. We measure from the back face of the tail housing, from the aluminum, not the seal lip, but the aluminum, to the face of the third member flange. This measures out to be 53 and 5/8. Okay, in addition to the overall length, there's two other dimensions that are required to determine your drive shaft. The first one is dimension J, which is the dimension across the caps of the U-joint cross, and on this it's 3 1/4. And then dimension K, which is the diameter of the cap, 1/16. So you record those dimensions on your drive shaft order form, and that shows that it's a 1310 type U-joint for GM. Record dimension J, K, and the length, and then you can send this to Silver Sport to have your custom drive shaft made and shipped to you. And that completes the installation of the TKO and the Tri-5 for Silver Sport transmissions.